This lecture, we are going to consider the aggregate functions in SQL. Now, SQL has provided us with varieties of aggregate functions which we can make use of when querying data from our database. And the main idea behind an aggregate function is to take multiple inputs and then it returns a single output. That is the basic or the main idea behind the aggregate functions. We are going to see that in details when we get to our pgadmin. Now, this is a link which you can click on to read more about the functions, that's aggregate functions in PostgreSQL. Right, so these are some of the most common aggregate functions that we have. The average function, which returns the average values, also has a count, which returns the number of values. So it therefore takes multiple inputs, right, from our database. It may be selecting a column and then taking multiple input from all the column and then returning a single value. So the count function returns the number of values in our record. And we have the maximum. The maximum function returns the maximum value in our, maybe in our column to say. And also we have the minimum functions, the min functions to say it returns minimum value, and then the sum. So these are the most common aggregate functions that we have in SQL. Now, aggregate function calls happen only in the select clause or the having clause, right? And these are some of the special notes you should take note of when you are using the average, you are using the aggregate functions. That the average returns a floating point value. All right, when you are finding the average from a column, it's going to return you floating point values. When I mean floating point values, like in form of many decimal places. Example, we can see it here. All right, so you can use the round function. Whenever you get something like that, you can always use the round function to specify precision after the decimal number. Maybe rounding it to 2 decimal places, to 3 decimal places, to 4 decimal places, depending on what you have been asked to put down. Right, we also have the count function which returns, and we've seen this earlier before in our previous lectures. The count function returns the number of rows that we have, which simply means that by convention we can use the count this, where the asterisk here is simply counting the whole record, right, from our table. Now you can decide to replace this with any of the column and it will still give you the same value. All right, for us to properly understand and how to apply these aggregate functions, we are going to head over to our pgadmin, and so we can practice what we've learned so far. So we are going to be using the themes table in our DVD rentals database. Now let's select, first of all, let's select the whole record from the theme, right, theme table. Now if you execute this query, we have about 1,000 rows, which is, we are going to print it out. You can see it down here. We say successfully run, total query time 3 seconds, and the rest 1,000 rows affected. So these are our record from our theme table. Now if we happen, for example, let's check the replacement cost. This is a replacement cost for the theme we have here. Now maybe you've been asked to find the minimum replacement cost from that table theme. How do we do this? Right, for us to achieve this, we first of all apply the minimum function in our replacement cost column. So we use this replacement cost. All right, then when you execute this query, remember we said that the aggregate functions take multiple inputs and then returns single value. So the minimum value, the minimum of our replacement cost takes in all the values and then it returns us a single value of the minimum. All right, then we also have here the maximum, if you have been asked to find out the maximum replacement cost, you can run this to get your maximum value, which is 29.99. And also, if you've been asked to find the count of this, all right, so all these are aggregate functions. So if you run this, it's returning a single value. So we have 1,000 rows in our table theme. Okay, and if we are also asked to maybe find the average of the replacement cost, right, the replacement cost from our theme table, and then we are asked to get the average AVG, right, then you run this, it's going to give us 19.984 and some multiple zeros here. And we saw that in our lectures where we said that the average function returns some decimal place floating point values. And so for us to cut out this, we need to apply the round function. For us to apply the round function, we use the ROUND, the round of then this, for us to get our value. When you are using the round function, we need to apply the number of digits, the decimal places you want to round it to. Let's say you want to round it to 3 decimal places. You run your query, and this is a 3 decimal places, 0.984. You can choose 2 here to get it to 2 decimal places, 19.98. Now we can also use the sum. Maybe we've been asked to calculate the sum of the whole replacement cost from our theme table. So how do you achieve that? You use the sum function here and then execute your query. So we have about 19,984,000 replacement cost. So that is how to use the aggregate functions when working with SQL. So I thank you so much for having followed up the course till this section, and I so much appreciate you, and thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions, you can always drop it at the question and the answer section. And also, the Discord server is always running. And if you have issues with your code, always copy and paste it there, and you get to see other people that will get it solved for you. So I